This is the warning. There is something important to understand. Donald Trump wants you to be afraid. He wants you to have anxiety. It is all part of his political strategy to provoke rage and then more rage. He wants people to be angry because anger, in his estimation, is a preface to surrender, to hopelessness, to capitulation. There is something true about Donald Trump. Every time in his life that he has pushed forward, it has worked for him. He has never been held to account. He declared bankruptcy and got richer. He defiled the Constitution and was elected president. And now, Donald Trump, enraged, angry, filled with retribution against the American people, against his opponents, has decided that he will smash it all, burn what has been built over 250 years to the ground, and say, when he is done, that he has made America great again. Over and over and over again, Donald Trump lies. The lies are coming faster, and they're getting bigger, and they're becoming more aggressive, more authoritarian in nature, because they demand that you submit reason to his command. They demand that you have amnesia about what you just saw under his command. And they demand that you accept as explanation for whatever happens in the world what Donald Trump tells you it is, no matter how stupid, how venal, or how false. His ideology is malicious, his methods are sinister, and the damage is just beginning. This must be opposed. Do not be afraid. Now, each day, there is a reason to panic. But instead of panicking, let me suggest that you breathe, because breathing will help you be still and gird yourself for the things that must be done in the weeks, in the months, and the years ahead. I'll tell you right now how this ends. We win, but it won't be easy getting there. Yesterday, we saw the fullness of Donald Trump's Star Wars bar scene cabinet fully assembled. It is a frightening sight. There has never, ever, in the history of the United States, ever been an assemblage of such unqualified, incompetent, disordered people, sycophants all, none of whom have any business serving in positions of public responsibility and trust. But because, as Winston Churchill observed, Trump won, we get the government we deserve. Now, what I want to talk about is a return to first principles. That is what we must talk about today. First principles. And so I'd like you to listen to three things. First, we're going to hear from the 35th President of the United States, John Kennedy, speaking in January of 1961 to the Massachusetts legislature on the eve of his heading to Washington. He will talk about character, integrity, and judgment. We'll listen and we'll look at the faces of the Trump cabinet. Next, we'll hear from Sir Winston Churchill speaking in Missouri in 1946. And then we'll hear from Radoslaw Sikorski, Polish foreign minister, about the crisis at hand and the biggest lie that you are being sold in this moment. President Kennedy, over to you.
For of those to whom much is given, much is required. And when at some future date, the high court of history sits in judgment on each one of us, recording whether in our brief span of service we fulfilled our responsibilities to the state, our success or failure in whatever office we may hold will be measured by the answers to four questions. First, were we truly men of courage, with the courage to stand up to one's enemies and the courage to stand up when necessary to one's own associates, the courage to resist public pressure as well as private greed? Secondly, were we truly men of judgment, with perceptive judgment of the future as well as of the past, of our own mistakes, as well as the mistakes of others, with enough wisdom to know what we did not know, and enough candor to admit it. Third, were we truly men of integrity, men who never ran out on either the principles in which they believed or the people who believed in them, men whom neither financial gain nor political ambition could ever divert from the fulfillment of our sacred trust. Finally, were we truly men of dedication, with an honor mortgaged to no single individual or group, and compromised by no private obligation or aim, but devoted solely to serving the public good and the national interest. Courage, judgment, integrity, dedication, these are the historic qualities of the Bay Colony and of the Bay State, the qualities which this state have consistently sent to this chamber, here in Beacon Hill in Boston, and to Capitol Hill back in Washington. And these are the qualities which, with God's help, this son of Massachusetts hopes will characterize our government's conduct in the 4 stormy years that lie ahead.
It is a miracle of sorts. Never before the 20th century could anyone have ever hoped to have heard the voice of the dead. But because of video and audio recordings, Winston Churchill is with us. And boy, do we need him. We must heed his words because they are enduring. The man who stood alone, telling the world that the danger was gathering, that the war was coming, was not just right about the Second World War, but was right about what followed it, the Cold War. Let us listen to a great friend of America, a man for whom a U.S. naval vessel is named, a man whose bust has sat in the American Oval Office, where he sat with the man the world's leaders called the Apostle of Peace, Franklin Roosevelt, the architect of the world order in its darkest days. At 5 o'clock every day, where Donald Trump now desecrates the Resolute desk, Franklin Roosevelt and Winston Churchill sat and mixed cocktails and dreamed about a world at peace, free, with liberty and justice for all. Winston Churchill was an honorary American, first man ever to be made an honorary U.S. citizen, and he loved this country. Let's listen to him talk to us about our responsibilities.
The United States stands at this time at the pinnacle of world power. It is a solemn moment for the American democracy. For with primacy in power is also joined an awe-inspiring accountability to the future. If, as you look around you, you must feel not only the sense of duty done, but also you must feel anxiety lest you fall below the level of achievement. In these states, control is enforced upon the common people by various kinds of all-embracing police governments to a degree which is overwhelming and contrary to every principle of democracy. The power of the state is exercised without restraint, either by dictators or by compact oligarchies operating through a privileged party and a political police. It is not our duty at this time, when difficulties are so numerous, to interfere forcibly in the internal affairs of countries which we have not conquered in war. But we must never cease to proclaim in fearless tones the great principles of freedom and the rights of man, which are the joint inheritance of the English-speaking world, and which through Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, the habeas corpus, trial by jury, the English common law, find their most famous expression in the American Declaration of Independence.
And now, let us come forward into the future. Let us listen to the words of the Polish foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski. There is no country that was more brutalized by aggression, Nazi aggression, Russian aggression, and Western indifference than Poland. Poland is on the edge of the frontier. It has absorbed millions of Ukrainian refugees. The Poles fought back, and the Poles will always fight back. Yet, should it become necessary that they must fight, it will be on the back of a tragedy that is unspeakable, for it will have been as unnecessary as the other European wars that brought civilization to the edge of collapse, and that a generation of statesmen and women had the wisdom to save the world so that it could be redeemed from the ashes of the miseries of the war that almost destroyed everything and enslaved the peoples of the world. The Polish foreign minister.
In times like these, when the world seems out of joint, when the old seems to be dying, but the new cannot yet be born, what we need is a return to basics. To questions about what's right and what's wrong, what's true and what's false, what's actually happened and what's just a figment of propaganda.
My friends, we are connected by history and a mutuality of ideals and ideas and values. America's greatest export has been freedom, the concepts of liberty, the dignity of the human being, and they are all under threat. There is great indifference by the American people to the fate of Europe, and there has been great ingratitude towards the American people from the leaders of Europe, who have not traveled into the middle of the United States to say hello to the American people in a very long time. That should be fixed immediately. The Democratic governors should invite, on this edge of the 250th anniversary of our independence, the Chancellor of Germany to the country, to the crossroads of the American Revolution in New Jersey, the President of France, Macron, to repeat the steps of the Marquis de Lafayette. Gavin Newsom should invite the leaders of America's greatest allies to come speak to the California legislature and let them deliver the type of speech that Foreign Minister Sikorski delivered. These days of crisis pit two opposing forces against one another. One is freedom and a belief in humanity, and the other is a belief in power and a fusion of it with technology and greed, the philosophy of the locust, the doctrine of the taker. It is immoral, it is repellent, and it must be resisted by a faith in humanity that finds its manifestation in politics, in the practice of democracy. Today, I've tried to give you a bit of a history lesson. Have faith and do not be afraid. This is The Warning. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.